Sekeres Price for Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're heading to a game, an event in downtown Vancouver, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Grady Sass hitting switches, conducting things with prima donna Sean Chessman. We got a big show coming up for you. Ed got a little big after his debut yesterday.
Super famous.
Came in a little late today, you know, because, now he's... And it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
What's the Infinity you've got from Applewood Infinity?
I have the QX55, buddy. And
you have the QX55 right now?
Yes, I love it. Yeah.
Applewood Infinity Langley has the QX60 ready.
I had that before. That's magnificent as well. A lot of space in that vehicle.
Right now, you can lease it at 0.99% up to 24 months on all trims. Get it done right now at Applewood Infinity in Langley. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today, and got to admit, I got outvoted on this one. Blake and Grady liked this poll. I wasn't so fussy. Who is the key to unlocking Elias Pettersson? Himself or his wingers? You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. That all said, it's doing well. It's getting engagement, so well done, guys. More on that in a second. Because here we are, 4 games into the series with the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers. And before we get to our top story today, I was thinking about today's show because typically you lose a playoff game, particularly when you lose a playoff game in the manner that the Vancouver Canucks did yesterday, and that is just simply not good enough for the first half of the game, and yet somehow, some way are even with 90 seconds left and have a fighting chance, better than that in overtime, give up the late one, and so heartbreaking loss after climbing back against the Oilers with 2 goals in the third.
Both sides could have swept the other by now.
Really?
You could make the argument.
Yeah.
You can make the argument.
Right. And so typically you lose a game like that. It's Chicken Little, the sky's falling, blah, 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 blah. And you sit here and you rehash everything that went wrong. And we're going to unpack this game and what went wrong. And we're also going to point forward to game 5 and what we think needs to happen. But here's the thing I just want to leave our audience and Canucks fans with. Because here's where I was at last night and here's where I'm at this morning. I really like the spot they're in. This is now a best of 3. They have home ice advantage. They have the better goalie in the series. They have the best defenseman in the series. They've held Connor McDavid reasonably in check. They've stifled every other Edmonton forward outside of the big 3, and they got their first goal from a bottom 9 forward in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins last night. They've lost 2 tight games. They still have that never say die spirit, and they have no pressure to advance here in comparison to the Edmonton Oilers, who are closer to cup or bust. So if you take anything away from today's show, I think the Canucks are in a really good spot here.
I think if they were offered this spot a week ago, you would have signed on the dotted line.
If you were offered this spot at the beginning of the season, you would have done cartwheels naked down Burrard to get to it.
However, if you would have been offered this spot, 20 hours ago, I don't know that you do. I think people move the expectation that close. They ultimately were in overtime at 2-2 with 2 minutes left. All the time from there on in is overtime.
Effectively.
So you effectively got to overtime again with a 3-1 series lead on the line.
Yep.
I mean, the only 2 losses for the Vancouver Canucks in this series come in actual overtime and in theoretical overtime.
Right.
So I think people are getting greedy.
Because you got game 3, even with the loss, you still have home ice advantage. You don't even get that sort of punitive blow that you often get when you lose a playoff game.
Yeah.
J-Pat, not quite as rosy as me, but I liked his tweet from last night. Canucks in decent shape, tied 2-2 heading home with a number of passengers. Too late, one more on the passengers in a second. Too late, 1-goal losses to the Oil. They've kept 97 in check. 3 or 4 games have been disciplined. It's true. Getting goaltending, need better starts, and more engagement across the board. Have to boil it down to 2 of 3.
It's
because While the Oilers have had periods of dominance with regards to puck possession and shots on goal, they haven't through 4 games. Like, I was expecting at least one of these games where Edmonton just blew their doors off, where it was just too much speed, too much offensive ability, too much power play, bad loss, Canucks licking their wounds and going, oh my God, we have to be a lot better. Hasn't happened. Their defensive structure, their defensive posture at 5-on-5,
it's really
endures.
Good. Yeah.
That is the absolute gift that Rick Tocchet has given this market of hockey fans after watching such terrible defensive hockey for a number of years under multiple coaches. These guys have all bought in.
And even yesterday, where the Canucks generated nothing in terms of high danger chances in the opening 40 minutes of play, the Oilers only had 8 themselves, which is a medium number.
Right.
It's not big. So again, they had the world at their fingertips in those opening 40 minutes and really didn't do a heck of a lot with it. Like if you're holding the other guys to bagels in high danger, you would think on the other side that number would be 12 to 15 over 2 periods of play at least.
And here's the thing,
it wasn't.
Even against those high danger chances, I love their last line of defense right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Silovs was good last time.
He's on it.
I mean, he coming out to challenge there with the poke
Oh
check.
my God, the confidence that takes, Blake.
And it was perfectly
It was
done.
absolutely perfectly. Not a single hesitation.
No.
He knew the task at hand and he racked it. And that's when you can tell. Athletes often say, when you're thinking out there, you're in trouble. When you're just reacting, when that first instinct is the correct instinct, you're in a really good spot.
One more second of thought on that play
is in a really good spot.
One more second of thought on that play, and it's in the back of his net.
For sure. For sure.
He used as much time as he needed to make the calculation and not a second more.
On the poll question, I voted Elias. I voted himself. And the answer is really both, because he's dragging 2 saddlebags here on each flank. But at the end of the day, great players have to elevate. Great players have to make poor players, average players. They have to make average players good players. And we just have not seen Elias elevate in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And really, you can throw that onto the pile of things that I like about the Canucks and the spot they're in. They've gotten to this point without a lot of contribution from number 40. So I voted Elias. You're voting wingers, I'm guessing.
Well, here's the thing. The answer, as you say, is both. But we're gonna parse it here.
Choose, yeah.
And over the long term, in the big picture, my answer would be himself. But in this short term right now, in the micro, not the macro, you have to consider there's 2 wingers. There's 2 of them. You've got 2 guys that could help elevate Elias Pettersson, who's in the doldrums. He's slumping. Like, this isn't who Elias Pettersson is, but he's slumping. You would hope one of 2 other guys could elevate their game and help to get Pettersson out of his predicament right now. And neither one of them seems able to come close to helping.
And folks, let's just clear this up again. I think it's been settled, but for those who continue, he is not injured. Rick Tocchet doesn't go on the he's not injured screed that he went on last week before, whenever it was, if the player's injured. You just don't do that to a player that you've just signed to a long-term extension. And I don't think Rick Tocchet says what he says last night, post-game, if the player is injured. That's piling on. That is just dumb. That's not good coaching. This guy's above that. Tocchet, I mean. So look, the Stanley Cup playoffs is a different brand of hockey, as we all know. Some players are built for it. Some players adapt to it. I'm not sure Elias is built for it, and I'm not sure he's adapted to it yet. He's going to have at least 2 more opportunities.
But, all that being said, and I've mentioned this in passing before, I think there is a solution here that pleases everybody. And I think that means that Elias Pettersson is a winger for me in game number 5. He's not getting benched. People calling for him. He's not getting benched. Stop it.
No, that's crazy town. You don't have You're already carrying 3 or 4 forwards who have no business being in this playoff series or who aren't doing anything in this playoff series.
I'm not terribly fussy about where he becomes a winger. I know you've been more lotto line. I'm open to it. I would try to create. I think the top line, the Miller line, is doing fine though. It's doing fine. Besser's leading.
It wasn't as good last night.
Wasn't as good last night, but
it is doing fine. In fact, Besser was better than his line mates last night.
So I would leave that line alone right now. Pius Suter does a lot of the little things. He's a smart player. I'm fine with that for now.
Yeah,
I would create another.
He's drifted a little bit, but I hear what you're saying.
I would create another legitimate line that matches Draisaitl and McDavid's individual lines if they're going to be separated, and I would go into the Elias and Elias. Double E's. I would go there, and I'm open to Garland being there. I'm open to Garland moving up with Suter or Miller if you want to bring Suter down. I'm open on any of the other combinations. But if you're talking tandems, duos, I don't know that Dakota Joshua's been so good 5-on-5 outside of his game 1 heroics in each of the series that I need Joshua to follow Lindholm anywhere. But hey, if you want to go Joshua, Elias, I could be open to that too. But I would match them. If they've only got 2 lines, why don't you load up your 2 best lines and go toe to toe with them?
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about really since after game 1 and certainly after game 2 is that, and one of the reasons I would support Lotto Line more regularly or permanently is you have to make McDavid, and look, now McDavid and Draisaitl are split, so it's a little bit different. But you have to make McDavid and Draisaitl play some in their own zone.
Yeah.
So you need good offensive players to do that. Like the Canucks bottom 6, they are chip and chase guys. And if Conor Garland and Dakota Joshua were consistently able to create zone time, and I thought they were decent last night against that line, then you might have part of your problem solved. But the fact of the matter is they're gonna be playing the Miller line a lot. So force them to defend some by having good offensive players on that line and controlling the puck in the offensive zone. That it again falls under something we've heard time and again this season and this postseason, is that your best defense is a good offense. You've got the puck in the other zone, in the offensive zone. You're not too worried.
Surviving those top 2 lines of the others is, to me, not good 7-game strategy.
Yeah, just having to survive them with the defensive posture, shift after shift after shift after shift.
And 23-year-old third-string goalie save us like that.
Yeah.
It's worked to this point. It's kept their head above water to this point. But I would say that is a little bit of a folly for the next 3 games.
Well, that's it. I would be concerned about that for the next 3 games. Plus, now you force the other guy to adapt. And we got Marc Crawford on the show, and he gets into this a little bit. You know, the coaching adjustments that go on, adjusting to the adjustments in a Stanley Cup playoffs. See what Knobloch has in that regard. So, anyways, we're going to get into more of that. But let's get to our top story. I think it was like 20, maybe 25 years ago. There was a commercial for a big Canadian brewer that played ad nauseum in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Set to Iggy Pop's The Passenger. I ride through the city's backside. I see the stars come out of the sky. Rick Tocchet needs some stars coming out of the sky as we get into the top story brought to you by Mr. Lube. 5 or 6 passengers, Blake, and not only did he open with that remark, he circled back to it later in the press availability when really it was a non sequitur. He went out of his way to hit that again. Who are the 5 or 6 passengers?
Well, remember, it has to be from last night's game, so you can say ancestrally guys like Niels Höglander, but Höglander wasn't playing last night, so I don't think he's a passenger, and I don't think he's directing blame at guys like Niels Åman and Linus Karlsson, the very most peripheral players on the team. You know, it's not an exact number, so I'll go to 5. I'm not going to say 6 because he's just kind of pulling a random number out of his back.
Well, at one point he got to 7, but yeah.
So I'll go Lafferty.
Yeah.
I'll go Bluger.
Yeah.
I'll go Ian Cole.
Okay.
I'll go Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
And
I'm missing 2 big ones. Mikheyev.
Mikheyev, yeah.
Philip Hronek.
Hronek wasn't a passenger to me. He's not playing well, but he's not a passenger. The guy had what do you have 6-7 penalty shot attempts last night?
I think Philip Hronek is playing through something, but it's clear that Philip Hronek is not giving them what he gave them earlier.
But that's different than what he's talking about. A passenger means you're not engaged in the fight. Taking 6-7 shot attempts as a defenseman, you're there. You're just not playing well.
I guess I would quibble a little bit with your premise of it has to be guys from last night, because I think some of the passengers have already been scratched.
But that's not what he was talking about. His quote from last night was a review on the game.
Yeah, fair.
So he thought guys in the lineup last night.
Right.
There was 5 or 6.
So if you're getting to 6 or 7, because at one point he got to 7, I think Hronek's on that list. But that's just me.
Now, it's gotten to the point, too. You wonder if any of these passengers might be scratched for Jonathan Lekramaki. More on that in a second.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Mr. Lube, the top story. Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment, tire service, and sales. Drop by anytime for rotation, repair, balancing, all makes and models of service, including EVs. Go to MrLube.com for the location nearest you. He's at the podium right now talking to the media. He says, I'm willing to swing the big sticks, as Rick Tocchet. He's willing to swing for the fences, and he says Jonathan Lekramaki is in play. That sounds really exciting for Canucks fans. I would not.
It's a hell of an NHL debut for a guy who's, mostly played on the European ice surface. So
I don't know what the tail of the tape is right now, but he feels like he's about $140 soaking wet. I don't know if that's playoff ready just yet for me.
Let's get to Rick Tocchet and his opening comments when he reached the podium at Rogers Place in Edmonton on Tuesday. He's exasperated, and here's the first call out of 5 to 6 passengers.
We need 5 or 6 guys to get going here. I mean, it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's some guys I don't know if they thought it was the playoffs. So we can't play with 12 guys. So we got to figure it out quick. It's 2-2. Obviously, it's a tough one. Edmonton came to play. They wanted it more early. The second goal at the end of the period was a killer. Another couple of given mistakes, and then the last goal. So, I mean, it's just can't do that.
Can't play with 12, and some guys don't know it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. That is strong. And, this isn't a dumb guy, nor was this a guy who was speaking purely out of what's the word I'm looking for? Irrationally. He wasn't speaking purely out of frustration. It's always calculated. It's almost always calculated with pro coaches these days. It's particularly calculated with Rick Tocchet. I love the spot he picked. Because it's now time to hit the button on Pettersson and Hronek and some of the other ones. You're down to a best of 3. You ain't got time to bleed. You don't have too much more time to wait around for them to figure it out. So I love the spot he picked. I love the strength of his commentary, but I also loved how at the end of the press availability, there was a reassuring line from the head coach. Let's play that second Tocchet clip.
Well, it's a will to get the puck. It's not X's and O's. It's a will. There's times there we have some guys, the puck where it's going to go. You just got to get there before the other guy. And I think we're pausing. Some guys are playing pause hockey, and you can't win if you have 5 or 6 passengers or 7. I don't know how many it was. We'll take a look, but there's at least a half a dozen just passengers tonight. Quite frankly, that's what it was. But saying that, that's playoff hockey where the next game's a new game. So some of those guys can be a hero for us. So they got to step it up.
Pause hockey. I've never heard the phrase.
No, I love it though. I love it. I know exactly what he means. Like if you're hesitating out there, you're in the wrong series. I love how he brings it around. Who's going to be heroes for us? Good word to use there. Look, Elias, you may feel shit on by the market, and you got a chance to be a hero tomorrow.
Well, he's, for a guy, and I think it was Jeff that was pointing this out on social media, for a guy that has been so careful with his words, lest he, in his own words, make headlines, quote unquote. He's given short answers before because he doesn't want to make headlines.
Right.
what you're doing on the ice is making all the headlines.
No, exactly.
Like,
exactly. You're so worried about the headlines. It's an agency thing. It's not a words thing.
Yeah. You got a way for you to erase all the headlines that are being written right now, and that's by playing better.
Right.
That's like by playing honestly, like you did 6-on-5, but at 5-on-5.
I thought Elias had that competitive chip on his shoulder already.
Sure.
Like, to me, I'm a little disappointed that I got to this point. Like, I've always perceived Elias as a guy who wants to stick it to his critics. And right now, he's just scoring. He's just sort of meekly fading.
Well, what do we say about Pettersson in the early part of this year and right to the midway part of the season? And even when he started to struggle, he was still going out and hitting guys. Remember that? Remember he started to
the reverse hit.
The reverse hit. Like he started to inject him.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to play like that in November, in January, but this is where those would come in real handy. You know,
at least
even some open ice hits, knocking guys off the puck.
Right.
Haven't seen a lot of that.
He took a big one last night too.
And the board battles. Like, can somebody please win a board battle? Not just him.
Well, and also like detail. You know, like how he just blows by Ekholm.
We got
in the neutral zone.
That's not my car shaking you off. It's Matthias
Ekholm.
No, that's like
he just flies by Ekholm, you know, which gives Edmonton the time and space to create that odd man rush where Nugent Hopkins scores. Just one last thing on, you know, Tocchet and the at the pulpit. I liked what Farhan tweeted, and we have Farhan on the show today. Tocchet is smart enough to know that it's time for motivation, inspiration, and innovation, not desperation. It's still a 2-2 series with 2 out of 3 games in Vancouver. The whole goal was to shorten the series just like it has been in game. They're where they want to be. Right. It is not desperation time. Well, but it is absolutely kick in the ass motivation time. It is absolutely inspire your charges time. And if he's talking about Lekramaki or something else, then
Podkolzin and Höglander he mentioned without being prompted as options.
More on them in a second.
And Baines perhaps too.
Here's Tocchet when asked specifically about Pettersson, and you'll hear Farhan's question on this.
You know that PD won a key faceoff on the eventual goal that you guys scored late, but you would think that if they're going to split up their lines and he's getting third line matchups, you need to find a way to win that battle. How tough has it been there, not getting a lot?
Like I said, there's 5 or 6 guys. He's, you know, he's got to get going. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, not much else to say. Not much else to say. You know, as you said, no one wants to lose last night's game if you're a Vancouver Canuck, but you get to lose and still hold on to home ice. You get to lose and still hold on to your serve. So in a lot of ways, you get the benefit of having that bounce back feeling of licking a wound and bouncing back and being angry about losing and being in control of the series. You will go out and win game 5. Guess what? You've pushed the Oilers to the brink of elimination.
And you have the knowledge, you have the better goaltender. This from Noah Strang of Offside in the Daily Hive. Elias Pettersson's playoff stats extrapolated over 82 games. He's on an 8-goal, 24 assist, 32-point pace through 10 postseason games. And Noah includes Mikheyev's stats: 11 goals, 20 assists, 31 points in 78 games this season. So he's right about slightly worse what Mikheyev gave you over the season, production-wise. That's not good. Now, here's what I want to ask, though. And we brought this up on our post-game pod last night, Blake. And for those of you who don't know, we're bite-sized little post-game pods after each game, usually out within the hour of the final horn. Rick Tocchet needs a whole lot more from some of these quote-unquote passengers. And guess what? His players need a little more from Rick Tocchet here now. The time is now to start leaning on your best players. Knobloch, and he backed off it a little bit yesterday, but Knobloch's playing Draisaitl, McDavid 28, 29 minutes a night. You now have to play your best players 25 plus minutes a night.
Well, the ice time last night was really
enough
weird.
of this Willie Desjardins. Let's roll 4 lines or 3 lines in his case.
But that hasn't been apparent in a lot of nights here for Rick Tocchet.
Well,
Last night was a weird
Blake,
one. We had 21.
Quinn Hughes average time on ice in the postseason, 23 minutes and 46 seconds. That is down nearly a minute from where he was in the regular season. He's played more than 26 minutes just once in this series. Thought we were looking at a 30-minute guy.
You don't want that, though.
A Duncan Keith, Cale Makar type in the playoffs. Scoring chances with Hughes on the ice, even strength. Canucks 11, Oilers 3. Scoring chances without Hughes on the ice. Oilers 18, Canucks 5.
A 23, 24-minute night for a defenseman, though. Your top defense, he's not.
It's not enough for Quinn Hughes. That's not enough for Quinn Hughes. That's fine for another good defenseman. This is an elite defenseman. This is the best defenseman in the league this year. It's time he goes on the Duncan Keith program. Son, you're playing half the game. Get lots of fluids, eat lots of bananas. You are going to be out there every second shift.
Far bigger issue with the forwards. JT Miller, 22-51 in game number 1 of the series. Scores a goal. Last night, 19 minutes even. 4-minute
Last
difference.
night he wasn't going as well, Blake, and I understand what
Play
you're
him
saying,
again,
and I agree with you. I agree with you. Like last night, I thought he leaned on Brock a fair bit because Brock was going.
Game 2 versus the Oilers, Elias Lindholm, 20 minutes, 50 seconds.
Right.
21 minutes. Last night, 18:08.
Right.
3 fewer minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Put those two guys out together for a couple of shifts and fill those gaps a little bit. Get them both up to 21 minutes.
Yeah. Like Bluger played 11 minutes last night, and there wasn't a ton of shorthanded time there. That's too much. You should be down with the fourth liners. Play 7, play 8.
Linus Karlsson played 10 minutes last night.
Linus Karlsson, Nils O'Mon are getting shifts with 5 minutes left in the third period.
I'm seeing 94 way out there, way too much. Way too much.
I just don't get why this is the time to be experimenting with an AHL player.
Right. I agree.
And it's not that he hasn't been terrible. No. It's just he's not moving the needle. And he's getting manhandled out there.
He did nothing. You're talking Karlsson?
Yes.
Well, he did nothing in the regular season when called up by the Canucks. Nothing.
Oh, I think he's a fine player, but he's a fine fourth-line player. That
fine player, though, in the playoffs against a team that has guys that can push, these undersized wingers around.
He's not undersized. He's a big guy.
But he doesn't play big. That's the thing.
I disagree. I thought 2 games ago he fought through every forecheck, was winning board battles. But
so
again, that's a
bottom line.
That's a quibble. The problem is Karlsson's also been elevated and been a line mate of Pettersson. Yes. That's the issue. Okay. That's the issue.
So since Coach brought it up, and I was going to talk about this on the show, irrespective, and I agree with Grady. So let me ask: is it Hogs and Pods time? Are the alternatives just so unpalatable that you might as well try 2 guys who you hope are going to be a part of the organization going forward? Are these playoffs just weird enough that maybe your top prospects saved the day? Remember, we used to talk about them as a tandem so often, and then Höglander this year turned into a 20-plus goal guy in the NHL, and Vasily continues to stall in the AHL.
What are the chances you get regression from where you are?
That's what Blake always says when we talk about lineup changes. How much worse can he be than so-and-so? And I'm with you, partner.
Like, if he's worse, and maybe they're worse, it will be incremental. It will be almost unnoticeably worse.
Yeah. I didn't even see a Sam Lafferty shift last night that I liked. Normally he's got the one shift where you see the speed and you go, wow. But he's a perimeter player.
And I see some on
Höglander. I hated the spot of where he took Höglander out because, that's a goaltender last night that you're playing against that just tell him to sit in front and be a pest. Nils, all you have to do is be a net front pest. This is a guy who hasn't played much. This is a guy who played in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just be in his kitchen. That's your only job tonight.
And poor baby David Quadrelli, who's at home sick in bed. Quads, get better. He throws this at could Lekramaki not ride shotgun with Pettersson and get 4th-line matchups at home tomorrow? Am I crazy? I mean, you could, it's effectively like rolling with 11 and 7, but instead of throwing Linus Karlsson out there with Pettersson every once in a while, you'd be throwing a guy who's got a God-given skill and a great shot.
So for me, Lekramaki smacks of desperation.
Yeah.
For me, you're asking a skilled European who, as you mentioned, Blake, is undersized and not accustomed to the North American ice to drop into Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs and have an impact or just not be a detriment. I would prefer going back to the guy who is an NHL player in Nils Höglander and scored 20-plus goals, lost as he has looked in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I will also even concede to you, because I know we had some fun with this in the first round, that at least Podkolzin has the body and sort of game that's conducive to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I would feel far more comfortable with those two guys than with Lekkerimäki, then with Carlson, then with Oman, although...
Baines? How about Baines?
Nah.
Boy, if you get
really
Archie Baines
faded.
that you got on his NHL debut, then I'd be down with it.
Again, Gray, no one's asking Archie Baines to score the game winner here.
No. And he's a pretty heady player, but he made mistakes.
That would be my
he
mistake.
took penalties and
At least though with Pods, he'll forecheck. You'll know he'll play physical. He'll try to create.
And he's heavy. Along the boards. Like he get a puck in the skates. Maybe Podkolzin wins that battle.
Right.
And Podkolzin here, I'll say this too. He's been at his best in tournaments in his career. His best hockey has been in tournaments.
Oh, really?
In high pressure, big game situations, that's where he's played his best.
Okay.
This is a big tournament, the Stanley Cup.
KHL
it is the
playoffs
biggest
too.
tournament.
Yeah.
2021, 16 KHL games, 6 goals, 5 assists.
Right.
In the playoffs. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'd be pretty tempted. And Höglander sat long enough. He's a 24 goal scorer, whatever it was this season. I mean, heaven forbid the Vancouver Canucks score a couple early goals. The Oilers fans could say the very same thing. Nobody's really, run away and hit at any moment in this series. But on home ice, with some exuberant new blood in the lineup and guys that have been kind of shamed out of the lineup in a Höglander.
I'm with you. With you.
Ready for it.
Again, Vasily, nobody expects you to be a hero, but you get a chance. Like the Canucks, think of what a bottom 6 goal would do for the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, man. Think of what a goal from a winger on Elias Pettersson's line would do. Like, Ilya Mikheyev, how many shots do we need to see into the middle of the goalie's crest? The speed on the outside where he circles the wagon, throws it back across.
Well, Lafferty too. The speed around the outside, but we don't get inside the hash marks, gentlemen. And guess what? That's not going to create a lot of good
and I thought Lafferty
goal opportunities in the Stanley Cup.
I thought Lafferty would be a guy that would use his speed. He would be hard on the boards.
Not a small man either. Not a small man either, but no.
I think he could be coming out of the lineup.
Too much.
YouTube comments are saying, get Lafferty out.
No, for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. In fact, of the 3, Lafferty, Oman, and Carlson, I think I'd be more inclined to keep Oman.
Yeah, he's actually been
of the 3.
Decent.
And again, of your options
Penalty
to go
killing.
in, I'm absolutely Nils Höglander, and I am now willing to go Vasily Podkolzin. It has reached that level in the bottom.
Blake's
6.
X factor from round 1.
Would that be redemptive?
Can you imagine if we
oh my God. I would be peacocking around this studio.
More so than usual.
Like, honestly, it will be shameless. If Podkolzin is a factor, it'll be shameless.
You would only be strutting like a peacock. You'd be cawing like a peacock.
I might. I'd be shrieking like those poor people in South Surrey.
Those very poor people in South Surrey.
Yeah.
And perhaps with the series coming back to Vancouver, now they got last change. You get the proper matchups you want. You start getting some pucks on net.
Right.
Picard last night, the Hockey Night in Canada. Calvin Picard. Jean-Luc. Where
it's Pickard, isn't it?
Pickard, yeah. Did I say Picard? Yeah.
Okay.
They were giving him credit, and yeah, he was fine. But there were so many pucks around him bouncing around. If guys are crashing the net and putting those rebounds home,
Grady,
the Canucks, the recipe is there to beat this.
And that's why we spent so much time on the post-game pod last night talking about it, is you had blood in the water. A 32-year-old journeyman goaltender off his only good NHL season, playing his first Stanley Cup playoff game, because the other guy is such a mess that the head coach felt he had no choice but to go to you.
The blood hasn't
and
washed
you
away.
Didn't. No, it hasn't.
Nope.
But you didn't. I mean,
and they'll go back to him.
It's already been leaked right now / reported that it
now
is going to him.
The one thing that I would wonder, and I had a listener, a follower ask me on Twitter, do you think it's fatigue at this point with the Vancouver Canucks? Like, did they just expend so much during an 82 game regular season? And let's remember, this is not a team that's accustomed to be in the playoffs. This isn't a team that put it on cruise control at one point during the regular season.
Miller
they had poor spells during the regular season, but like a perennial playoff team like Colorado, Edmonton, they understand the big games versus the non-big games. Tocchet sort of was a little relentless. So are they spent? Basically,
it's a worry for me for Hughes and Miller. Not that they played bad per se, but I think they look a little worn down. And I wonder if the ice time that we talked about was looking at some body language and going, "Oh God, he is pretty worn out. I'm not going to throw him out right now."
It's a good show.
So yeah, it's a worry, and it was sort of plus side. Bad side of this series being game on, game off every single day. There was none of these 2-game gaps that we had twice in the Predators series. Those 2-game gaps.
Yeah, fair enough.
And it's funny, those 2-game gaps seem like they were in the wrong spot in the Predator series, on like giving the Preds time to recoup and figure things out. But I think the Canucks would probably love an extra day gap here in this series right now.
Sometimes you make a lot of sense. Bring up good points.
But I mean, I think that the Oilers look a tad tired too. I mean, so who's going to find the extra juice here as this series grinds on?
Well, you mentioned JT Miller, and it was by no means a great night for JT Miller. He's been sensational for the Canucks all season long and into the postseason. And I will give him so much credit because he was sort of known as a young, petulant, defiant player in his early days, and the maturation here in Vancouver and stepping into a leadership role with this team, he has hit so many right notes, including the personal accountability. Here he is, and JPAT and other reporters who are in there day in, day out say this is the lowest they have ever seen JT Miller as he talks about the game-winning goal from Edmonton's Bouchard.
I mean, I'm pretty upset with myself at the moment. That was a pretty big play at the end of the game there. That pass should have never got to Bouchard, and certainly shouldn't get past me, so Hardy can't see anything.
Yeah, he's not in proper position to get the puck out. He's leaving the zone a little bit early, and then he compounds it by not getting in the shooting lane, although Besser is on that. I mean, Besser can get in that shooting lane as well. And I was surprised because I know when you're a skilled player like that, shot blocking is not necessarily something you do a lot of or in your nature. But I would have thought that JT Miller understood the moment and just laid out everything to block that shot.
Yeah,
I wonder if he was still angry at himself for the first mistake, which is why it didn't occur to him to get down and eat that puck if he needed to eat that puck.
I think he'd like it back. Certainly, I think.
No doubt.
Just the way he was leaning maybe didn't prevented him from sort of making that stride to lurch out and block it. Who knows? But I'll say this though too. We've praised Rick Tocchet for hitting a lot of the right notes. Great communicator that hasn't changed at all, and that continues yet last night and into today. But I think he fell victim to something that we have lamented, at least I have for sure, I think you have too, is that you don't change a winning lineup. And I think that this passenger thing was not exclusive to last night. I think there have been passengers for some time now. And I think Rick Tocchet, and it's not necessarily a conscious thought in his brain, but he fell victim to, it's good enough, I'm going to roll out the same guys. And I think some of the changes that he's going to be making for game number 5 certainly could have been made for last night, if not before that. But if he makes them for last night, maybe the game rolls out a little bit differently.
Bud Colson here.
Line mates for, I think Höglander too. I mean, moving on from that, giving other guys a chance to show that they want to be there.
Well, Höglander he takes out after a win.
Yeah.
Again, it was a very strange spot to take Höglander out. There were many other games earlier this postseason where I would have picked to say, you know what, Nils, taking a seat for the next one.
But he paid his
Have
price.
a watch. Yeah.
The game 3 win was
just tactically. Again, that's a 20 when he scored 23, 24 goals against a goaltender who is gripping in there.
But the game 3 win was not so overwhelmingly like dominant that you're like, oh, I can't change this. No, they've been tight games with lots to pick apart in each game on both sides. I think a tweak of the lineup probably could have been done then.
And so you get this sudden change of emotion and momentum. Matthias Ekholm in the Edmonton room, quote, "It was awesome. A great ending to it. Would I have liked us to just ride that out, win 2-1? Yeah, but it was kind of like when they scored, we played too good of a game to not win this one. It was something I was at least feeling out there, whether we're going to get them, whether it's now." Well, said where we're going to get them, whether it's now or in overtime. And that's the thing. You were this close to breaking their spirit, right? Where they go, oh, we play a game like this with the backup goaltender, and we got to go to overtime against these guys. Imagine they lose. Oh, instead, you got an Oilers team that's riding high after the thrilling victory at the death. So
it's still Calvin Pickard in goal, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think deep down,
so you got to test them, Blake.
I think deep down, a lot of them are terrified by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd have to be.
Well, and the other thing, it's not just a gettable goalie; it's a gettable team defensively as well.
Yes,
like the second time this series, absolutely. The second time this series, they sat on a lead, multi-goal lead this time, and blew it.
Well, who got the chance when we were watching together? There was a Besser that was loose. No, it was
two multi-goal leads blown because they've sat back. They're not that team. They're more an all gas, no break team than they are. Okay, let's call off the dogs here and play safely. They've got gettable defensemen.
Besser's soft spot goal from 2 games ago where he's at the circle. Garland had a chance there. We were talking about this watching to Greta.
Mm-hmm.
Where whoever was rolling out of the corner, I want to say it was Lindholm, we all yelled, hey, give it to Garland. Count to 2. Still hasn't given it to Garland. Garland's still open, gives it to Garland. Garland gets an unadulterated shot on goal.
Yeah.
Like, they have soft spots. They give up spots right on the circles for the Vancouver Canucks to shoot from. There's lots of opportunity there, which is why you have to think the more skill, God-given skill that you put into this lineup, as much as you love meat and potatoes, I think the more God-given skill you get in the line, they should find a way.
Conor Garland was the best Canucks skater in game 4. Scored a goal. You could see it coming. And we always knew he was a teacher's pet. The work rate is almost always there with Conor Garland. And Rick Tocchet addressed that. And I think this also spoke to part of the overall master plan of messaging that Rick Tocchet had, because he took the opportunity when asked about Conor Garland. Why is he out there? Well, you'll hear why. Here's Coach.
He doesn't give up. That's why he's out there. He's digging for us. He's one of the guys that we rely on to give us juice. Hopefully some guys look at that and go, hey man, I got to get going. So yeah, Gars he's been like that all year though.
Yeah, hopefully Nils Höglander, I said this yesterday, I think, too. Mm-hmm. Hopefully Nils Höglander watches Conor Garland and says, okay, that's a smaller guy, too. And that's the effort that's required. And I would love Nils Höglander to look like Conor Garland. Yeah. His underlying stats were not great last night, but look at his counting stats. 9 shot attempts. 9 shot attempts, 2 block shots, which is tied for team lead last night. No, pardon me. Ian Colby had him beat by 1. Had doled out a hit, plus player gets a goal.
Well, he's running that second power play unit.
That second power play unit was better than the first.
Oh, man. And you know what? Great for Conor Garland. Probably not good for your team. Very good. Right? The old Torts David Booth saying. And I love Garland, but hey, if you're going to win this series, it's Pettersson, it's Miller, it's Hughes, and Besser. They got to be your best players.
Yeah, I'd love other players to have 9 shot attempts.
Yeah, Tocchet says the power play didn't work hard and mismanage the puck. He was scathing on that. And the first unit was
clumsy along the board.
4 minutes. Entries. That's a gift. Evander Kane, who's still pissed off about being stuffed into the bench by Zadorov. You could tell the ego was hurt. The machismo was hurt. He's running around. He's trying to hit everything. He takes an undisciplined penalty. You get an absolute gift. And the first unit power play looks like that.
Yeah.
Where again, just a simple zone entry proves too difficult, let alone possession and chances and scoring. And here's the other thing, Blake. I think Tocchet goes on that rampage because they lose the game in regulation. I think if they lose the game in overtime, he is a lot softer in his comments. But he called it a freebie goal at the end. And I think that set him off. Like, really, guys? Everything that happened here tonight, in terms of not enough effort, shots, what have you, not testing a backup goalie in a Stanley playoff debut. We get to 2-2 with 90 seconds left in the game, a minute left in the game, and we can't get it to OT.
60,
because once we get to OT, it's a brand new game. Forget about everything that's happened.
62 seconds after that game tying goal, like the roller coaster of
I
that
know.
high.
I know. Well, look at
goodness.
earlier in that shift. They tie the game at 2. Seconds later, after they drop the puck, Miller bearing down the right side.
It's true.
He has a shot attempt, and he fans on it, and it dribbles off to the left, and then it winds back 25, 30 seconds after that. He's still out there, and he has that kind of effort. And I think at that point, Miller sees that one opportunity, and he thinks, oh, and then it goes. And I think at that point, everybody's like, okay, let's get to the intermission and re-rack. And I think they lost focus for a second. They just thought they would get into the intermission.
Yeah, and Miller noted that rush when asked, did you guys change the way you play sat back, 2 pass up after tying the game? He mentioned that play. But no, not aware enough, not strong enough on the puck, not desperate enough in those final minutes, that final shift where Edmonton scores the game-winning goal. 2 questions for you here. Edmonton has 7 goals from their defensemen in this series. Ekholm and Bouchard, of course, being the main contributors. Is that sustainable? You think they're going to continue getting goals from defensemen here? I mean, Bouchard's a very capable offensive guy.
Yeah,
got the shot.
I mean, he's a rover. He's not even that great a defenseman per se. He just thinks offense all the time.
But law of averages, is that coming back, or do you think that's sustainable? That they've found something there and they can score some goals?
I don't think Matthias Ekholm is going to be a guy that's leaned on for offense a ton, but Bouchard,
his first goalless game of the series, game 4.
Bouchard's regular season was spectacular.
Next question. They have 1 goal from a forward not named Draisaitl, Hyman, or McDavid. It's from Burnaby's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, scored yesterday. They get more goals from forwards other than the big 3? Do you worry about that at this stage, that
somebody gets hot?
Well, Evander Kane hasn't scored in the series. McLeod hasn't scored in the series.
I mean, if you are feeling pretty helpless with Elias Pettersson, I mean, look at the other side, right? So there's more likelihood that Elias Pettersson wakes up than Evander Kane does.
Sure.
Speaking of Kane, the chat is buzzing about that cross check on Myers in the face.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of that? Elliot,
I just said I still think he was ego bruised about being stuffed in the bench. I think he was out there looking to play physical, looking to hit guys that finish checks, play to the echo of the whistle, and lost his cool.
He's had that play. He's had the flu foot on Hughes. I mean, he's getting away with it right now.
He sure is.
And also, the chat is saying that Ian Cole should come out when Susie comes back and keep Juleson in. Thoughts?
I mean, it's a loud mistake from Juleson last night, but it's 1, whereas Ian Cole has got more than 1 in this series. It keeps a natural righty in there, and I do wonder.
I'd entertain it. I really would.
Yeah. That's, especially with last change, I would probably keep Juleson in and sit Cole.
The other big story of the day here, guys, we need to address, and it seems like the last thing the Canucks need on their plate right now, but Rick Tocchet again brought it up. Demko has improved immensely in the last 72 hours, says the Canucks head coach. What does that mean to the equation already? He's not playing game 5. But is it a lose game 5 and he's in for game 6 scenario? And it sounds like that's sort of what they're intimating.
I'd be interested to know what Tocchet has told the team about Demko and whether that jives with what he's saying here. I think if there's some gamesmanship here about putting that thought in the Oilers' head, that's interesting. I also think he might be doing it for Thatcher Demko's own spirit. You would have to think he's really low having to miss all these games after such a marvelous season. Goaltending is not the problem right now.
No.
And unless Arturs Silovs shits the bed in game 5 or game 6, I don't see any reason why you would move to Thatcher Demko here. I could understand him feeling if it got to a game 7, boy, I got to go down with my all-star goalie. But I think that would have to be preceded by a poor performance from Silovs in game 5 or game 6.
If he's spectacular and the Canucks lose 2-1, I would probably still ride with him. But if they lose 4-3, and you don't blame him for any of the goals, but you lose 4-3, I think you go to Demko. And you hope that Demko,
6.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a spectacular Silovs performance in a loss.
To me, the evidence suggests that he came back a little early from the first injury.
Mm-hmm.
I know they've said it's a separate injury,
but he was good. He was good. So I when you got 4 months to heal after this, 4 or 5 months to heal after this,
you say 4 or 5 months, but if you win the series,
you're
playing on.
I think you cross those bridges when you get to them. It's like the pitcher using pitchers. Who's my starter next game in an extra innings playoff game?
Yeah,
you worry about that when you cross the bridge.
I think a lot of people thought that Silovs last night further cemented himself.
He was great.
He was
just spectacular.
Lastly, before we get into our parlay challenge here, our menu and our Bet365 bets of the day. I would say I felt sad for Corey Perry, except my opinion of Corey Perry, the person, changed some this year. Reduced to Sean Avery tactics of holding his stick in front of Besser's face like a child. And I loved how Besser stared right through
like
him.
It wasn't even
did
there.
Not even give him the acknowledgement that such juvenile tactics don't deserve. He's a sideshow. Last we see of Corey Perry, that's justice.
He might be the worst Oiler on the ice. Those shenanigans. I mean, at least Sean Avery had strategy in mind. He was trying to distract the goaltender and help his team. This was after a whistle.
Corey Perry,
apropos of nothing,
is down to the last tool in the box. He's got nothing left, and this is what he's resorting to.
And of course, a short time later, Besser doesn't get credit for the goal, but basically scores.
Yeah.
Boy, did you throw him off his game, Corey.
Oh, did you ever?
Fabulous antics.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well done. Made for a good photo.
I think in his own mind, he was Gandalf. You shall not pass. With his magic staff. You shall not pass.
Did you watch the trilogy recently? That's the second Gandalf shout this week.
True.
You at home with 3.5 hours for the Twin Towers?
I would love to.
All they do is walk around for 3 hours and then come back to the Shire.
Number 2 is so good.
Is that Twin Towers?
Helm's Deep or whatever it's called. Oh, so good.
What's the third one? Return of the
King. Yeah. The King just passed away, the actor that played him.
Oh, yes. He's a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Rest in peace. Yes.
I'm going to have to get that.
Easy.
The King passed away.
Yeah.
Gandalf.
No, not Gandalf's not the King.
Right,
He's a wizard.
Right,
yeah.
right. Okay.
Come on.
Yeah. No. I watched them. Them way back when they first came out. I mean, beautiful scenery there in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Great job, Peter Jackson. Is that it?
That's right.
Well done, Peter Jackson.
If you crossed a worm and a rat in a science lab, you would get Corey Perry.
I mean, he's always been an idiot, but when you're scoring 50 goals and you're an idiot,
at one point he's one of the great power forwards in the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's a goal scorer and he's a shift disturber, and that's a very valuable player.
Oh, Getzlaf and Perry were so annoying.
Oh, they
my
were
God.
so annoying, but
Yeah.
well, actually, I didn't find Getzlaf that annoying. Perry, wholly annoying.
I think Perry brought
But
out the worst in Getzlaf.
To a degree, I think you're right. Like, I really think Ryan is Saskatchewan nice. Like,
Totally.
You know, Regina Ryan, like, just, you know, neighborly and all of that. And then Perry, you know, taught him the dark arts and brought him to the dark side.
Add Kessler
But-
and DX to that
Oh
mix.
my God. Can you imagine that team once more? But no, you had to give Perry his due way back when. Now, I'm not sure he should have won that Hart Trophy. That he was a bit of a, you know, that wasn't the biggest slam dunk Hart Trophy, but he was a great player at one point, and he was still an effective player at one point, even after he lost some of the scoring touch. But now it's sideshow.
Before we go and move on to our features here,
Yeah, we have to get there.
one last thing.
Oh boy.
And this is why we don't get watch parties, folks. Vancouver police are investigating the crime on the Laughing Men of English Bay. You know, the statues at English Bay there at the corner of Denman.
Yeah.
They were all adorned in Canucks
I
jerseys.
saw that. Yeah.
Somebody burned them. Lit them on fire.
Oilers fan.
Lit the jerseys on fire?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't burn brass men, but
I was going to say,
yeah.
that would take some kind of heat.
Yeah. You melt them down.
melt them down.
Yeah, that did not happen. But yeah, the jerseys were
Do we have CCTV? Do we have camera surveillance video on those?
on that intersection. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's a big sort of spot.
Sergeant Steve Addison says this is disappointing to see, especially when everyone is coming together
Yeah.
to cheer on the Canucks
Yeah,
and
it is.
enjoy a positive playoff run. So,
That's not wrong, Sarge.
Steven in the YouTube. These guys are killing me with how wrong they're getting the Lord of the Rings movies references.
Oh, no, that's on me. That's on me. I'm not
getting any references.
I'm not huge on fantasy films. Regular audience knows that. So Blake has to coach me up on
You Shall Not Pass is not from the second movie, if that's what you think I got wrong. That's from the first movie, but the second movie is the best one. No question about it.
Anywho.
Yes.
Is the second one where they
Matt, you had an out there.
encounter the annoying little precious guy?
Gollum Schmeagol.
He gets discovered, I think, late in the second one. Yeah.
Late in the second one.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think so. Yeah.
The Daily Face-Off Playoff Parlay Challenge. We have been telling you about this for several weeks now. 4 questions daily. You pick the winning team, guess the points over under, predict the first goal, choose the highest scoring period. You play them. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. Blake Price is playing them for us on a daily basis. You know how you did last night?
I did not do well.
You were not the winner.
I was adorned with 3 points for whatever.
Daily winners
counts
get
for.
gift cards, champs of each round pocket cash. Where are you going today?
Well, just one game today. So
Right.
it usually there's 4 or 5 questions or bets per day.
Mhm.
And because
Per
there's-
game.
per game, sorry,
Yes.
yes. This one, of course, is a
All
little bit
about-
deeper
Yeah.
into the Dallas and Colorado. So I hedge towards an Avalanche. As you'll see with all of my choices, I hedge towards an Avalanche.
I see this.
High goal victory.
You got Colorado winning. You got
Yeah.
over 6.5. Now Hintz isn't playing for Dallas, and who else is? Dallas
Devon Taves on the other side
Oh, wow.
is questionable. Tanev is in but hurt.
Okay.
So
Shocker.
Shock. You got Colorado on the first goal.
yeah, Colorado on the first goal. I've only got McKinnon for unders on the assists because I think he's going to score a ton of goals. So
Well, he's a shooter.
yeah. So yeah, and I give Heiskanen his assist because he'll do that in his sleep. So I'm anticipating a 5-3-ish kind of Colorado victory. That's where
Okay.
a lot of those choices went.
All right.
So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm pulling for Colorado tonight. I would like to see that series go deeper.
Yeah, exactly.
I think those are 2 really good teams, actually. And I think Colorado obviously got a heartbreaking blow when they found out Nichushkin hours before puck drop was going to be suspended and miss the rest of the postseason.
And I think the reason why they were bad that night too was I think they were angry at him. And
then go play angry against.
well, I think it didn't serve them. I think tonight it might.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our menu today, quickly, Grady, we going Farhan or Coach Crawford?
Crow first.
Coach Crawford is going to join us. Marc Crawford, former head coach, Vancouver Canucks, who's got some terrific insight on the strategy, the tactics, the adjustments. Farhan Lalji, who covered Game 4 in Edmonton of TSN, is also going to join us.
Toronto Greenhouse in the chat is the annoying little precious guy named Marchand.
Time now for our Bet365.
Oh, no.
What?
Menu brought to you by Greta.
I think you said that, didn't
No.
No? Okay.
No.
And
We had a good time at Greta last night.
Yes.
Thank you to Chantel and the staff.
the poutine is very good.
It's very good. We'll see you there Saturday. We will be back there Saturday for another.
Yeah, Saturday night.
Party.
It'll be packed and a lot of
Absolutely.
fun.
And,
Go check it out.
Come see us. You get free game cards, 3 hours of free gameplay at the arcade. You just come on up and say, hey, I'm here to join the party. Bet365, sponsor of this next segment, proud partner of Sekeres Price, our best bets or bet of the day. Look, I really like Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, although there's a report that he's filed for divorce here this week.
Which could explain some of his erratic play in the last year.
Brooks Koepka, really like all three of them at this week's PGA Championship. I just don't like the prices. They're the three favorites. And Scheffler's just 4-1. This is golf, man. That's a very short price.
It is.
So I'm going further down the board. Xander Schauffele, 14-1, coming off a strong tournament, if not a strong Sunday. Wyndham Clark, the reigning U.S. Open champion, 40-1. And then a guy who's made his mark a little bit this year, a newcomer to the PGA Tour, Jake Knapp. He's got a tournament win earlier this year. He hits the ball a ton. And it's kind of a horses for courses pick. He's at 200-1. We're going to sprinkle some action there.
Okay. I'm looking at the Canucks in Game 5 already. Elias Pettersson. This is a hedge bet. You can cheer it on for him to be unlocked in game number 5. But you'll know deep in your heart of hearts that if it doesn't go his way, it goes your way.
Oh.
Under for points. This is pretty rare.
Okay.
Have a pointless night and you get plus 100. On a play like that, like mostly for the enders, you're getting negatives. Plus 100 for Pettersson to go pointless.
Ooh, we've got to that.
Hedge it. Hedge it.
Wakey.
Open an account.
Cheer for it. If not, you got dollars.
Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. VANBONUS altogether, all one word. Marc Crawford is next.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the net. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Joined now by the former head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, Marc Crawford, who's been helping us out and letting us know what he sees with his coaching eye after some of these Canucks games. Coach, thanks for the time. Appreciate it, Mark.
Glad to be here, guys. Tough morning for Canuck fans. Tough morning for the Canuck players, too, I'm sure.
Yeah. What did you see last night? What stood out to you in Game 4?
Well, I really loved their third period. I thought, they did exactly what I was hoping they would do in the third period. They got the puck in deep. They really battled for their chances and their goals. And unfortunately, they hopefully learned a lesson last night that, you've got to finish things off, and playoff hockey never gets easier. You just have to continue to battle. I'm just reading what Rick said today, about how many mistakes were made on that last goal. I know I was watching it saying, come on, guys, get tougher, get this puck out, finish the check, get your sticks in the right spots. And there were several mistakes, especially when the puck didn't get out when it came around the boards. And I know it was a bit of a lucky break because it was kept in by the Oilers player's foot. Again, you don't get into the shooting lane. You don't have a stick in the passing lane. You lose the battle behind the net. Those small mistakes, they're usually okay if it's just one mistake on a play. You compensate for it. Somebody else compensates for it. But last night they didn't compensate for us, and unfortunately, give the Oilers credit, they found a way to put that puck in the back. And it was a great shot, actually, great release by Bouchard, and he's been impressive this whole series. So those were my third period observations during the game. The Oilers were the better team, and you expected them to make adjustments, and they did. Making the adjustments of splitting up Draisaitl and McDavid was probably the right thing for him. Now, the Canucks have to make adjustments to the Edmonton adjustments coming forward in this next game, and that's what it's going to be about. You have to have short memories at the best of times in the playoffs, and this is the tough lessons, and the Canucks just have to move forward, and they've been really good in these playoffs, so have some confidence that you're going to be able to respond in the right way.
It's always amazing to me that you play a third period like that, and I'm sure they tried to. I'm sure you have tried this yourself. Guys, you can play like this. You can play on the front foot. You can play with confidence. You can take the play to them. And yet so often in this series, not even just last night, but those first two periods are a great example of they're just letting the Oilers take the play to them. And it doesn't seem like they even have the confidence at times, Mark, to turn the tables until the third. They did. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's part and parcel of, who starts better. And just momentum. I thought there were some big momentum shifts throughout the game. When the Canucks didn't have any momentum from the 4-minute power play,
right? Yeah.
Against Evander Kane when the high stick was called, that was a big shift. And I thought the Oilers got a huge boost off of that penalty kill. And you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, the young goalie Picard is in the net. And hopefully, they can find a way to set up the power play. And that's a difficult challenge for anybody to deal with, the Canuck power play. But they weren't very good on that one. They didn't get set up. The Oilers were really determined. I thought that was probably the best point in their game defensively, was just how determined the Oiler defense was during that penalty kill. They didn't allow them to enter. They were so hard with them as the puck was coming into the zone, and it looked like it wore on the Canucks a little bit in that. And it took them a while to get back into the groove, because I think they looked and they said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us, and we didn't gain any momentum from it. So those are momentum shifts, and you got to deal with those in the playoffs. And it's almost, I used to love it. My daughter was a volleyball player at UBC, and her coach used to always say, you got to have a next point focus. And that's exactly what you have to do if you're the Canucks. You got to have a next shift focus. You've got to park the power play, the bad power play behind you, and you got to get right back and at it. And I know they're trying to do that, but that was my observation in the game last night, especially during that power play moment.
Best golfers, next hole focus.
Yeah. Next shot, the most important shot's the next shot. Mark, they held McDavid without a point in game 3. He's really been held in check in 3 of the 4 games so far. And I'm seeing a lot of plaudits come in the coaching staff's way for the way they've gone about designing all this. What are they doing specifically that you're seeing out there on McDavid?
Well, again, they're so aware of what his attributes are. And I think their gaps have been very good from the defensive core, whether it's been Myers or even Juleson last night when he was out there for those few shifts where he was out there again. You've got to have great sticks. You've got to recognize where his abilities are. I mean, he stops on a dime, and I just think they're so aware when he has the puck of what his abilities are, and that focus is what superstar players demand. You have to be great when they're on the ice. Draisaitl has been strong. He scored that same goal. It's frustrating because everybody knows where the pass is going. I used to try and diagnose their power play when I was working in Chicago, and I was running the penalty kill. And you know exactly what's happening. They're trying to carry the puck around. The pass back to Draisaitl is what you want. Yet they just seem to be able to execute when the slightest mistake is made. So I really like the way that they're gapping. I like the way that the forwards are backside pressuring and helping. I think that the big thing is that the people around McDavid are not being allowed to be open, because he's got that world-class skill that he finds people so well, and he can make those pinpoint passes. So it's been a combination of things. And yes, the coaching staff has done a real good job, Adam, Sergei, Mike Yeo, and Rick. But really, you have to compliment the players, because the players are the ones that are playing. They're the ones that are out there. And trust me, nothing gets an attention of NHL defensemen than superstar players. They know who the great players are, and they just have to be on their toes and have to be ready to handle the challenge.
As good a job as they've done on McDavid, I honestly didn't think they could do as good a job on McDavid as they have. So kudos to them. But they've had a devil of a time with Draisaitl, who just might be put together in a lab for the NHL playoffs. I don't know who's your favorite playoff performer to watch, Forsberg, I'm assuming, but when under your tutelage. But what can you do with Draisaitl? He is so big, he's so strong, and even when he's hobbled, which he apparently is, he's still fast enough to get from A to B as well. He's just, he's sort of like a slightly detuned Mario Lemieux in some regards.
He's big, he's strong, and he gets a shot away so quick. And when he does, he gets so much on it. That goal last night, you're saying, oh, God, just like I was saying earlier, you know where the shot's coming from, but he gets so much on it. And it's such a powerful shot that I think that's as you say, that's the formula for those players that do well in the playoffs. They have to have great shots. They have to be able to hit their spots. The way that Besser's been hitting his spots, and JT Miller, and those types of things. If you can hit your spot, you can get a lot on it. It's when you get that chance, there's just such short timing for that window of the chance to be there that you have to capitalize on it. And certainly Draisaitl has done that. So I think, to answer your question, the size, the strength, and the release of the shot, they're usually the things that set people apart. And then again, the power that he's got. He can handle the battle of big Canuck defensemen like Zadorov and like Susie, if he's in the lineup. Those big players handle that challenge a little bit better than maybe some of the smaller players that get thwarted by the power of the NHL defenseman.
Was it Forsberg your best playoff performer? Was it Zach?
He was pretty good.
Yeah, not
you
bad.
Seem to remember you remember those guys that scored for you in the 1997 playoff. Was Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux had 14 goals. And again, there's a big, strong guy that knows how to shoot the puck, knows how to get himself into an area where he's dangerous.
Mark, Rick came out last night, and his opening line included 5 or 6 passengers, and then later in the media session he comes back to 5 or 6 passengers, really on a question that's not all that related. So
he couldn't get the thought out of his mind.
So he had a talking so he had a talking point. It's clear to say. When do you know when to pick that spot in the media and call out players, even if it's not by name, but
I think he's being very intelligent here, in terms of it's honest. Everybody sees it right now. You need more, and I'm sure Chris Knobloch is over looking at the Oilers group and saying, "Yeah, we need 5 or 6 or 7 guys to be better."
Probably true
as well. So, it's a testament to how hard it is to be good in the playoffs. It really is. And that's why our trophy, the Stanley Cup, is the toughest trophy to win, because these games are such battles. And you're seeing now, like the series is slowing down a little bit. You haven't got the blazing speed that there was in game 1, game 2, where everything just seemed to be on hyper speed. Right now, it's a lot more calculated. It's a lot more battle orientated, and it's a lot more fighting through for the puck, or fighting through to keep people in check. And he's very honest. If we're going to win this series, we need everybody, and we need our top players to be our best players, because it's the old adage, if your best players aren't your best players, then you don't have as good a chance to win as when it's the opposite, when your best players are your best players. So Rick is pointing out somewhat the obvious, but he's not a guy that does this lightly. And I'll tell you what, I think sometimes it's the messenger too, and Rick has the credo of, he has absolutely known what it takes to win at these crucial times. I mean, he's done it. He's lived it. And you look at Adam Foote, and he's done it. He's been the guy. He has done it. He knows. And to me, that's what guys like Rick and Adam have over people like me, who are kind of just also Rams. They know, and the players know that they know. And so, let's hope that message sinks in, and we see an inspired effort from those 6 or 7 Canucks that need to give that inspired effort.
Hey, honest question here, Coach. How many passengers can you have in the playoffs? Like, how many guys can you get over who are not giving you much and still win hockey games?
Well, I don't think you can ever withstand anybody playing terrible. And I don't think anybody's playing terrible. I mean, I look at Elias Pettersson, who's getting the bulk of this criticism here today. He made 2 or 3 great plays with the goalie out last night. I mean, his patience, his ability, the shot he let go from the half board. I mean, that was a perfect shot. And Pickard, he found a way to stop it. So, these guys aren't playing absolutely dog crap poor, but you need them to be better. You need them to be better. You need them to be impact players. And that's the same, as much as it's top players, you also need the guys that are coming in, like the Carlsons, and I thought Aman has been really quite good. So those guys gotta chip in, and it's those unlikely sources that give you the unlikely goals. And when those things happen, boy, that's what the dreams are made of right there. So it is a situation where guys, they just have to find a way, and every shift matters. So, you got to be ready each and every shift. You got to park the shift if it's a bad one. You got to get out there and put on your best foot forward if you're getting the next chance. And that's what the attitude has to be. And it's got to be determined effort, because you're not going to get anything unless it's determined effort.
JT Miller was down at 18 minutes. He's not one of the passengers for sure, but I'd be willing, if I'm coach, to let him have 21-22. Do you think that was Rick Tocchet just seeing that he's out of gas a little bit on that evening and not wanting to grind him to a nub?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of reasons why. I thought they were trying to play a game where they were sharing, the responsibility, and Rick's really looking at it as I see it, anyways, as this is going to be a team win, and it has to be a team win. And Chris Knobloch did the same thing, because the day before they tried to win by going to their big dogs, and they went to their big dogs and they just played the living hell out of those guys, Draisaitl and McDavid. And this time it was more balanced. And I think when that happens, sometimes you need the big dogs to be great. And that's a feel that the coach has to have. But most of the time you want your team to play team tough, to play team connected, to be all in it together. And it is the togetherness that makes it so special. As I said earlier, This trophy is a tough one to win. Each series is so hard to win, and now we're in the glory days of this thing because it's now down to a 2 out of 3. The Canucks have home ice advantage. They got to take advantage of it. You play each game as it comes forward, and they have to use all their efforts right now to focus in on what they need to do tomorrow night.
If you're Rick Tocchet, are you happy that you best of 3? You got home ice. Are you happy enough here?
You like the spot,
yeah,
Coach.
Oh God, yeah. And that's the thing. Like you can't lose perspective. Yeah, last night that's tough. It's really tough. But 15 minutes later, you gotta forget it. And I tell you what, these players fight through this 82 game schedule, and that's what the 82 game schedule teaches you. It teaches you that you can't belabor the crap games. You can't belabor them. You learn from them. You maybe give real strong messages like Rick gave last night, and you hope that everybody connects the dots. And that's what it has to happen. You got to connect the dots. We got to be ready for tomorrow night. That's got to be the refrain from inside that Canuck dressing room from everybody.
And it was the refrain from the coach last night, who, after he was done talking about the passenger, said it's playoff hockey and next game is a new game. And we can't wait for it. Mark, know you got a busy day there. Thank you for the time, sir. And we'll catch up here soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis.
But did you know that it affects men disproportionately?
Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old.
It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help.
There is help and support. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps one person, it might not be the same for everyone.
So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations.
We here at Sekeres Price want to be part of the solution.
If you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. And you can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on Help Starts Here website. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. We're joined now by TSN's Vancouver correspondent, 27 years, Blake.
Mm-hmm.
The one and only Farhan Lalji, who covered Game 4 in Edmonton. How you doing?
Good. Just getting back from YVR, heading back up to the rink as we speak for the afternoon availability here. That time of year.
Aren't the playoffs fun, right? The rat race to every different city and straight to the
amazing
rink.
race.
Yeah,
it's Amazing Race Media Edition. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I think back to doing it for 2 straight months in 2011, and it doesn't it is a grind. It's certainly not nearly what the players are going through, obviously. But, you want to be a part of it, right? It's not like you're looking for a day off. You don't want to be missing anything. So it's been too long, right? We've had to wait a long time in the city to be involved. And look, when it's a flight from Edmonton and it's an hour and 10 minutes, life's not so bad, right?
Small potatoes.
No,
and just remember this, Lalji, they travel better than we do. Okay?
Yeah.
Their job is harder, but they travel
You
a
don't
whole
think
lot
Farhan's
better.
upgrading himself to business class?
Well,
Come on.
I
Of course
tried.
he is.
I didn't get the upgrade this time. I got it on the way there, but not on the way. Murph, myself, IMAC, we were all on the flight. None of us got the upgrade.
Oh, denied.
Denied.
Hey, you were in the room. You were in the room yesterday. Let's start there because I would love to know what your interpretation was of the mood of the players and coach, because we've certainly done some of the reading on social media, but tell us what you thought of the room afterwards.
Yeah, just a huge level of frustration, right? I mean, I've never seen JT Miller like that, right? Like, you generally, even when he's mad, he's not quiet. He was quiet. And you could just see it in their body language that they knew they had a missed opportunity. They worked so hard to get that game tied and to let it slip away at the end. They took their foot off the gas for just a moment, and it was just too long, right? I mean, Miller himself took a lot of the blame for the loss, said that he wasn't in the right position in the defensive zone and that he felt he should have blocked the shot. I mean, you can kind of see earlier in the moment that he might have been trying to blow the zone, and Draisaitl knocks the puck down out of the air and keeps possession in the zone earlier in that shift. And certainly I'm not blaming him. JT Miller's just been so important to this team, but he took it on himself, and the other players we had a chance to talk to felt the same way. Just huge disappointment.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I've loved his maturation because he's right, and taking the accountability and doing that, I think, very much allows you to lead in the dressing room if you're willing to look in the mirror first and take accountability when things go wrong on your watch.
Yeah.
You and I both love the way that Tocchet communicated last night, because that was clearly calculated. Farhan, so take us through what you loved about Tocchet last night in his remarks.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the remarks for me, Matt. It was just his entire body language. And, we tend to try to read a lot into that when we think we know a guy and we think we've been around a guy. Like, we see him at a podium after every game, after every practice, and just watch him rocking back and forth, right? As he was standing up there, like, it was almost like he felt the need to release something, that there was just a tightness and he was kind of ready to explode. And he was just kind of bouncing back and forth on his feet. He never does that. You can see the tightness in his face and his facial expressions. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't think so. He was really frustrated. And there was a portion of Tocchet that just felt like he was at a loss to, what do I do with these guys? And he's always pushed the right emotional buttons. And I think he has here too, but just the frustration level that was there, because you don't have a lot of cards to play. And he's said before, late in the season, we got to get some guys going here. And he said it early in the playoffs. We got to get some guys going. And then for him to say, 5, 6, maybe 7 guys, and, talk about them being passengers. I don't even know if they know the playoffs have started yet. And then when I doubled down and I specifically asked him about Petey, he just then lumped those guys into that group just so there was no mistake. He can't walk it back and say, no, he wasn't one of the 6 I was talking about. Yep, he was, right?
Oh, we all know that. And yet, Farhan, and we read your tweet earlier in the show, though, he's smart enough to know that it's time for motivation, inspiration, innovation, not desperation.
Yeah,
there's still a case that you love the spot you're in here if you're the Vancouver Canucks.
For sure, right? The goal was to shorten the series. I mean, in every game, it's to shorten the game and be close late, right? When a team's got a little more offensive firepower. And same thing in the series. The longer it goes, the more it plays to the Canucks' advantage, right? It's not like they were up 3-1 and about to, choke it away. 2-1 is still a really close series. Edmonton got theirs last night. Every game has been a 1-goal game with a late goal, playing a huge part. So I think if you're the Canucks, there are some things in your process that you need to take care of. But big picture, if you'd have told this team we'd be tied 2-2 going home, they all would have taken it. And that's part of the message. So are there some lineup adjustments he can make? There are. But it's not like he's going to be able to bring in Jonathan Lekramaki and he's going to shut down Leon Draisaitl, right? Like, that's not the world they're living in. So they've got to decide. I think the more interesting part for me is what he does on the back end, because, look, I like Ian Cole, and he's been the victim of some bad bounces, but it does feel like this series is a little fast for him. The Nashville series was great. This one feels fast. And if it's me, I probably leave Noah Juleson in, even though he took a risk on the second goal there late in the period. But I think pace-wise, he might be better off, but it's a meaningful adjustment you can make, and then we'll see what happens up front, right? Like, is he prepared to give Podkolzin a chance? Does he believe he's sent enough of a message to Nils Höglander to get him back in? I don't know, but it's tough. You don't have a lot of big options to play.
Well, Farhan, I think you
as
do.
Much as all that is great, for me, it's less about the who comes in and who comes out now. It's how much are you going to put on your top players? And for me, it's got to be a significant amount. Hughes, Miller, Besser, you got to play the bejesus out of them.
Farhan, my pet project is along the lines of what Matt is saying, is Elias and Elias together. That's your best chance to unlock Elias Pettersson, is make him a winger for Lindholm. And I think probably Garland on the right side. I think Joshua is fine where he is. And, the Oilers are trying to find 2 lines. That is legitimately 2 lines for the Vancouver Canucks the minute you put Elias and Elias together. And are you a little bit thinner than you were the night previous? Yes, maybe, except that Pettersson's line is not doing anything anyway. So I think you've already committed to 2 lines working there. This would be a better 2 lines.
Yeah, but what, like, do you really think so? Do you think that Elias Pettersson gives you more than either of Garland or Joshua on that line? I think Joshua's doing good work. Look, I don't think the Lotto line is the solution because it's the Lotto line, because truly when Pettersson's gone there at times in these playoffs, there hasn't been much there. But I also think that Pius Suter has become less and less visible in this series. So I don't think it kills you to put Pettersson in that role. And again, it's not because I think Lotto is the end all be all, but you might, like, I see a player that's hugely frustrated.
Yeah.
Maybe you put him with Lindholm and then elevate Joshua or Garland to the first line in place of Suter, and Suter can center a third line or something like that. I mean, maybe there's a way to do that and get Pettersson in that role playing with better players. But, over the course of the last 3 months, he's had his windows playing with better players, and there hasn't been much there for 3 months.
I'm almost for Lotto line just as a defensive tactic. Force
Could
the
be.
McDavid line to play a little in their own zone by possessing the puck with your three best offensive players on.
I felt that they should have
on
done
one
that.
line.
I feel they should do that with more Hughes against McDavid, right? Because when they put that line together for the Oilers with Nugent Hopkins up there with Hyman, Hyman can play down low in the cycle game, but Nuge and McDavid aren't heavy players. And I think that's better for Quinn Hughes to not go up against heavy players. Whereas if he happens to get out there against Draisaitl and Kane, there's a heavy-ness to that line that doesn't necessarily suit a player like Quinn Hughes. So I agree with you philosophically, Matt. It might be better to do it the other way, but the Oilers now have two legitimate lines, right? I mean, with Draisaitl there, when they split those guys up, all of a sudden Nuge and Kane get better, right? And so they do have two legit lines now. And the Canucks, I think, do as well. I don't know how much you want to mess those two lines by putting Pettersson there, but I don't know. I don't know that you're getting worse than what you're getting out of Suter.
Crow was talking about the series slowing down just because of fatigue and the grind of the playoffs and all that sort of thing. Yeah. To me, that actually helps Pettersson too. I mean, the less this is to and fro barn burning hockey, I would think that works in Pettersson's favor, no?
I would agree. I wish there was one thing at this point that Pettersson could hang his hat on. That, okay, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not driving play and I'm not skating and I'm not trying to beat people, but I'm doing this. And I'm not sure what that is, right? Like, I mean, I think he's been okay defensively, not necessarily special, but for me, it just blows my mind because I've said repeatedly with this series that if you're going to wind up seeing a lot of Miller and Lindholm against McDavid and Draisaitl, Pettersson has to win his matchup against McLeod of all people, right? Like, you have to do that. And the fact that he's not against that level of deployment is tough. And like I said, I just wish there was something that even Tocchet, right? Like, Tocchet hasn't come out and said, hey, he's playing great defensively, right? Like when Lindholm was struggling before he missed 7 games with the injury, Tocchet would say that. He's doing great in the circle for us. He's playing great defensively. There are other things he's doing. He's not even saying that about Petey right now. Right, he won a big face-off on the game-tying goal, but beyond that, there hasn't been much of anything that you can point to. So I don't know if there's a role you can give him that allows him to point to something, right? That accentuates one portion of his game. But yeah, certainly if the series can slow down a little bit, I do agree with you. That is going to help.
He had wind underneath his wings at 6-on-5. All of a sudden, he looked like he was a new player, but it took 58 minutes for that to happen.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, maybe there's just always going to be some excitement for him playing with those guys, although we don't really see it at 5-on-4. And we have been seeing it at 6-on-5 from time to time. Right. So, I don't know. I just watch what's frustrating me the most, guys, watching this team is it's not like the talent level. It's just the number of battles they're losing. Right. And it's so prevalent on the power play. If you look at Edmonton and their power play, yes, we can talk about how talented they are with 97 and 29, but watch them win every puck battle. Like, even if the draw is kind of 60% won by a Canuck, 2 Oilers are there to fish it back out. The puck goes into the corner and a Canuck gets there first, which doesn't happen enough. And all of a sudden they've got 2 guys in the perfect position to prevent the breakout or prevent the clearing attempt and find a way to retrieve pucks. You look at the Canucks, they're completely spread out. Edmonton pressures them on the wall. They pressure them at the blue line and open ice. The Canucks just don't know how to handle it, right? And then that carries over into their 5-on-5 play. This team is getting outworked. They're losing every battle. Or at least, let's not overstate it. I think they did for big chunks of the 2 games.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I thought you were going in a different direction there because, despite a putrid first period or first half of the game. Really, a loud mistake from Juleson, another no-show from Petey. You know, like go down the list of sins from last night. It's a 1-goal game, and if they frickin' convert on a 4-minute power play, who knows where this game goes? Tocchet talked about how they mismanaged the puck on the power play. And I mean, some of his strongest comments were actually about the power play on a night when he was strong on a lot of topics. But he said the power play didn't work hard and mismanaged the puck. And really, that had been one of the storylines, Farhan, that as good as the Edmonton power play is, Vancouver's was almost goal for goal with them through the first 3 games. Last night, power play is the difference in the hockey game.
It is, but look, here's the thing, guys. There were 3 power plays. One of them was extended, right? This game was played largely at 5-on-5, which is where the Canucks should be comfortable. As far as the power play is concerned, one of the things both Tocchet and JT Miller said the morning of the game when they were asked about the power play turning a corner, neither one of them was biting. Right. Yes. Both of them said, we've just been opportunistic. We're not consistent enough. We don't gain the zone consistently enough. And they both felt that, the numbers, the 3 out of 7 in the previous 2 games were a little bit, I don't want to say fraudulent, but they were a little bit deceiving. Right. And so they're aware of it. And I think Edmonton's aware of it. Right. Which is why they're being as aggressive as they are. And the Canucks haven't found a way through it.
That's very good insight. And you're quite right. And Miller was even stronger after the game as well. He says sick and tired, didn't want to talk about the power play. Okay, last question from me. Do you like the spot they're in?
Yeah, I think you have to like it, right? I mean, again, if you'd have told most Canucks in the room, and probably even most fans, if they were being honest, given what the expectation was coming into the series, that if you're going to be 2-2, home ice advantage is now yours. Every game has been a 1-goal game. You've chased one goaltender already, and you've shown the ability to come back at any given moment. And Edmonton knows you can come back at any given moment. I think the Canucks are in a good spot, right? And that's why it is important here to adjust, but not overreact. And I think Rick Tocchet's going to find that balance. And I also don't think his comments in the room are going to be played as throwing his guys under the bus. I'm sure in Edmonton, everyone there is now thinking, oh, these guys are panicking. We've got them won. I don't think the Canucks are in that spot. I think they should feel good about where they're at right now.
Should the Canucks care who's in net for the Edmonton Oilers? Did Calvin Pickard have their number in any way, shape, or form?
No. I mean, tell me the high danger save Calvin Pickard made, right? Like Vancouver needs to make it hard on Calvin Pickard at some point. If I see a new goalie play, and he's not young, but first playoff game, I'm coming after him. I'm trying to make things hard for him, and they just don't get into those spaces of the ice until they're down late in hockey games. So they got to find a way early to manufacture some level of urgency to make it hard for the goaltender, like they did the previous game when they chased Stuart Skinner.
Yep, for sure. Great stuff, buddy. Thank you for this. Wish you the best. We'll catch up soon.
All right, take care.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Time now for the Golf Report, brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2024 season and playing to rave reviews. Tee times for any time during the 24 season can be booked online right now. And if you have a group of 12 or more, you, the organizer, plays for free. For more information or to book online, visit whistlergolf.com. And Blake, we come to the second major of the golf season, the PGA Championship at esteemed Valhalla Country Club in Louisville, Kentucky. And we do so, Blake, with all the best players in the world playing well. This could be really special stuff at an iconic venue of American golf. You have world number one Scottie Scheffler, now the unchallenged, unrivaled world number one, you may remember, after winning the green jacket. He's coming off 2 consecutive wins, took the time off because he and his missus had a child. He's won 4 of his last 5 starts. You have Rory McIlroy, world number 2, coming off consecutive wins on the PGA Tour, the team event with Shane Lowry in New Orleans, and then an astonishing victory at the Wells Fargo where he destroys the field, including Xander Schauffele, who was the only one close to him come Sunday's final round.
And then all the live guys are, I have no idea how the live guys are doing.
Well, Blake, I'm here to educate.
Oh, really?
Brooks Koepka is coming off a win at the Live Singapore event, and he is, of course, the
Live
defending
Singapore.
champion.
The history, the
tradition.
steeped in tradition.
You can win Live Singapore. You can win around anywhere.
Love that course.
Shinnecock with Crazy Greens, child's play if you can win Live Singapore. Koepka won Live Singapore. Koepka is the defending champion. It was a convincing win at Singapore as well. He is the defending champion, of course. He has one more major than Rory McIlroy, of course, who has now gone nearly 10 years. The last time, Blake, was at this golf course, Valhalla, where he won the PGA. Rory won the PGA in 2014. It was an August tournament back then, so he's not quite gone through 10 years on the calendar or 10 years of major championships, but he is approaching that.
Without looking at the stats, who will have had a better career as it stands right now? Phil Mickelson or Rory McIlroy?
Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to say.
More majors, more tournament wins. So,
which is crazy to say given the start to Rory McIlroy's career.
Oh, and given the start to Phil's career. Remember, he couldn't win a major forever. Yeah.
But winning later in the career is what has raised Mickelson's
I would say
profile.
that Rory's heights have been higher than Phil's heights, his peaks.
More dominant, maybe, yeah.
More dominant. More dominant in small windows. But Phil has had a better career.
Yeah.
And Phil, a better week-to-week player. Here's the other thing. The other reason why this golf tournament has fantastic potential. Justin Thomas, 2-time PGA championship winner, grew up in Louisville, knows Valhalla quite well. When asked about the golf course and why it's created some pretty good finishes in the past, he said there's not a lot of different ways to play it, and went on to theorize that it's hard for players to really separate themselves because really it's a driver golf course.
Yeah.
Just about everybody in the field is going to be taking driver, and there are fewer sort of corners to cut. You know, sometimes Brooks and Rory, they can pick a different line, a more aggressive
These
line
are big
around
old
a corner.
trees. You can't do that. Yeah.
So, Thomas theorized effectively you have a lot of guys hitting from the same position off of every fairway.
Driver accuracy is going to be everything in this tournament. They've narrowed the fairways as per usual. They've grown the rough as per usual. But the wild card here has been the moisture. They've had a wet spring.
Yes, they have.
And so the rough is not only long, it is freaking thick and lush. So
it looked like
good luck.
It looked like US Open rough.
Yeah. Well, PGA Championship has started to do that in the last decade. They've tried to US Open their course setup as well. But Mother Nature's helped out with the moisture that it's wet, thick, rough right now, and the moisture is not likely to leave anytime soon. So, if you're not driving the ball well, which is, for guys like Koepka and for DeChambeau, who when they're on, they're on, but when they're off, they are wild.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll play them so they won't make the cut if they're not driving the ball accurately.
Corey Connors is the Canadian with the shortest odds. He enters the tournament plus 9,000, according to Bet365. But there's good Canadian content here.
Yeah.
6 of them, including Taylor Pendrith, who won a couple of weeks ago on the PGA.
And Pendrith and Hadwin are playing together in the first 2 days.
Oh, brilliant.
So that's nice. The busy half hour to start. Svensson alone at 7:48 Eastern time. Pendrith and Hadwin together 10 minutes later.
Alone?
Well, no, not alone.
Oh, okay.
With Oakley.
Yeah.
There's not. I mean, that's Pendrith Hadwin are playing with Keimer, so that's a nice threesome.
Former champion.
Connors gets Dunlap and Shank, so that's not a bad one as well. The rest of them are kind of middling. Taylor and Hughes are later on in the day.
Yeah, Pendrith goes off at plus 14,140 to 1.